Hi, I'm Adam Point from Clarkson University, and this is a how-to video to do the perfluorinated compound water sampling for the teacher cruise on the Lake Guardian. So, this is what you're going to find on the ship. Basically all these parts are stored separately. So the shaft of the sampler will be these two pieces, and I labeled them in the figures I included. So this is part 1, which has the fishing line stored on it. Part 2 has this T kind of by the end, and then this shorter piece. So, and then there's a union in the middle, so you'll just put these two pieces together first, and then make sure that's together pretty good so it won't pop apart. Then you need these pieces. I need the other one too. So these are pieces 4 and 5 on the diagram. So these go together. You don't need to push them together very tightly because they don't really need to hold any weight. So, so you put them together, and the little screw eye at the end will go facing down so that you can slide these pieces together, and you can let that touch. The end you hold is over there. You can let that touch anything. It doesn't need to stay clean. And then rotate this so the screw eye is on the side, so that when the fishing line goes through it, it's on the side, not the front or the back. And then you'll take this other piece, which is part 3 in the diagram, and you'll put that so the short part faces the same direction as this piece. And then there's a small bolt right here that holds the clamp so it doesn't fall off. And then you'll just push that on there.
No, so this is the other.
So now you have something that looks like this. It might get all wet, but that's okay. So this is the snorkel part. This is where the bottle goes. This is the part that lets you pull the bag off the bottle. Okay, now we're gonna put the bottle on. So the next step, you need to put the bottle on. So you'll get one of these 1 liter bottles that are pre-rinsed. So they'll look a little wet on the inside, but it's just water, so it's fine. Then you'll take the hose clamp out of the bag that it's stored in. And then put the hose clamp on this piece like that. And then you'll just hold the hose clamp and shove the bottle down into it like that until the hose clamp touches the frame of the sampler like that. And then you'll take your little driver, so it's just a socket with a screwdriver, square drive attachment. And then there's a nut here on the hose clamp, so you just tighten that down. Okay, so now the bottle's on there, so you can see the hose clamp is below this little bolt, so that when the sample's on there, it can't pull off the sampler this way. And then you should tighten this enough so it doesn't really wiggle very easily, and you can't pull the bottle out of the hose clamp like that. So that way when it's full, it's not gonna fall off. And then you need to put the snorkel on. So this polyethylene tubing that's in a bag. Take the cap off the bottle, and then feed one end of the tubing, doesn't matter which end, through this part. Can be a little tricky, but because it gets hung up in the sampler, so it helps to straighten it a little bit beforehand. So then you shove that through there until it comes out the other side. Take the other end, shove that in the bottle until it hits the bottom, and it should basically stay there on its own. And just push that slack out the top, so that's kind of tight here. And then that's the snorkel part. And then you'll have someone hold the cap, take a clean, unused bag, and then you'll put that over top of everything. And then just zip it up a little bit over here so it doesn't blow away easily. And then, okay, so I just unraveled the line off of this little foam piece. So at the end, you'll see this loop is tied, and this line is pretty sturdy, so it shouldn't break. Then you basically just will feed this through that screw eye, and then there shouldn't be much slack in the line. This is actually a little bit shorter because I think it broke at some point, but you'll just put that over the corner of the bag and then pull that knot down tight. So that should cinch down, and once you get it fairly tight, it's not going to pull off of there. So now that's basically ready to collect the sample. Okay, so you're going to be on the deck of the ship when you do this, but here I'm just on the bank. So you'll orient the bottle so the mouth faces down, and then you'll stick this down into the water just a couple inches, and it helps to rest the sampler on the rail on the deck of the ship so it supports the weight. And then either you or your helper can pull the fishing line until it's not real easy to get off. And then, so you just put the bottle, yeah, that's fine. And then you submerge the bottle all the way, count to about 7 seconds, and then flip the whole thing over and pull it back in. And the shafts on the sampler is gonna bend. It's not really a big problem. And then you'll just take this tubing out, recap the bottle, loosen the clamp, take the bottle out, put the new bottle in, and repeat that same process. You should use a new bag every time just to make sure you don't get cross-contamination between samples from the surface layer of the water, but if for some reason you only have one bag per site, you can use the same bag. And sometimes, something to watch out for, if you let this fill too much, you'll start getting siphoning out the tube. So if that happens, just put your finger over the end of the tube when you pull it back in, and then pull the tubing out to maintain as much sample as you can. But that's basically it. Okay, so once you're done sampling at a site, you don't need to do this between samples at a single site, but after the site's over. I left 2 of these squirt bottles on the ship and also some methanol and water. It's all labeled. And so 1 squirt bottle's for each solvent. You need to rinse everything that was submerged in the water or exposed to the sample with methanol and then with water. So for the tubing, you would take it, and in general, it's best to rinse from kind of the top and then work your way down, or from one end to the other on the outside of the tubing. So you just kind of start like that and rinse it down and keep following that, and then you can start from this end, work your way around, and make sure you get the whole surface. And then for the inside, just squirt some methanol into one of the ends until you get a little pool on the inside of the tubing. And then you can just rotate the tubing around like this to rinse the inside. And you can do that a couple times, back and forth, and then dump that. And then do the same thing with water. Make sure you have clean gloves on. And so that's the tubing, and basically the same way with the PVC parts. So there'll be the 3 parts, numbers 3, 4, and 5 are the only ones you need to rinse, not the main arm of the sampler. So in this case, you'd grab it, hold it vertically, and just kind of start rinsing from the top and work your way down one side. Do the same thing, just keep turning it, and then when you get to the inside, just kind of work your way around and cover all the surfaces as best you can. And if you want, for the inside, you can flip it the other way, rinse it from that side. And then do the same thing with water to get the methanol off. And then you don't really need to dry them. You can just put them back in the clean bag that you took them out of for sampling. So you have a 2-gallon bag like this, and just keep it zipped when you're not using it. And then when you need to put them back in here, they don't need to dry, like I said, just put them back in the bag, zip it up. And then at the next site, you'll just take them out, reassemble it, and do the same thing again. Okay, so that covers all the sampling. And once you collect the samples, just store them in at refrigeration temperature, like in the walk-in fridge on the ship. And then we'll take care of picking up the samples off the ship and taking them to the lab to analyze them. So thanks for sampling for me, and I think that covers everything.